Hey, it's Chronologically Gaming, the only channel that's perpetually retro because we're playing every video game in order of release. Welcome to the Backlog, where we're checking out all the video games that we missed the first time around on the live show. Now, if you didn't think we have seen every video game or possibly played every video game, well, keep watching this show. Let's go way back to the magical time of 1975.
Introducing that king of fun, the one who's okay with us kids, the Magic Burger King!
In person?
Yay!
I'm the marvelous magical Burger King. I can do most anything. Now watch me, kids, when I twist my ring like magic.
We're at Burger King! Is my Magic Burger King?
I'm the marvelous magical Burger King. I can do most anything. I love magic and food that's fun. So I'll make a burger disappear, make it come back here. Turn apples into pies right before your eyes. Turn onions into rings.
As we can see,
Put a shiver in the shake. It's easy for me. I'm the marvelous magical Burger King. I can do most anything. I love magic and food that's fun. So
you got fun for everyone! Burger King, yay!
Yes, that is a real commercial, and yes, that is an entire minute long. It was a simpler time. Welcome to 1975. We were playing all the video games in order of release because it's Chronologically Gaming. We were last playing Drop Zone 4, but before we move forward, we have to go back because we can play anti-aircraft. There is a simulation of anti-aircraft. Let's go to the arcade and see what it's like to actually kind of play, get an idea of what anti-aircraft is. It's by Atari, released June 6th, 1975. And this is it. We kind of had the idea. We saw video footage of it, so we understand how it works. You have to have two people to play, so I could, get two joysticks ready to play, but I'm just going to start shooting from my end of the cabinet. So let's put a coin in and start. You can see the game begins with three buttons. I got a low, I got a medium, and I got a high shot. And you just have to time your shot to blow up different things. Oh, go. There we go. And you can notice that there's sometimes two planes that will come across the screen. Once you fire one shot, you have to wait for your shot to finish before you can fire another one. It's that classic one shot at a time, or one bullet at a time before you can have your turn. But as I'm firing off, I didn't realize this whenever we were seeing the game footage. When you push the button of the three buttons you have an option to push, it just immediately goes and fires the shot. So as soon as I push, that's my committed shot. And then that's it. So I thought there was some kind of movement or aiming involved, but not really. You can see down at the bottom, it's keeping a score of my side of the screen. And I'll move my camera over so you can see there is another gun turret, another anti-aircraft gun on the other side. But it's very, very simple and a very easy concept for a video game. How many shots can you beat to blow up more than the other person before they play? I'd still consider this a cooperative video game because we're getting to shoot things or bombers at the same time while we're competing for score. We don't really call competitive video games score only. They have to be something where we're in direct competition. If we're shooting each other, that is a competitive video game. So already I can kind of have the idea of how the game works. After the three shots, then it just fires off and goes back into the attract mode, and it keeps my high score up there. And that's it. This is yet another video game. When you're done, you're done. There's no gameplay loop. And there you go. So that's anti-aircraft. Of all the video games you could be playing right now in 1975, it actually reminds me of something from the future. It's like the air-sea battle game that's going to come out on the Atari 2600. But don't tell anyone because that doesn't exist right now. I would still say about average. For all the video games you could play, let's give this one a 3-star rating. If you were to play everything in the arcades and know everything in the arcades, I would say Pong is better. And this actually reminds me of some other amusement video games that you could play that are not video games. So 3 stars for anti-aircraft. All right, so after Drop Zone 4, as we see and play every single video game, what is next? Whoa, let's go to Germany to check out a home console. Yeah, a home console. This is the Interton Video 2000, released at some time in the summer. We're going to say sometime in July 1975. This is the second home console that we've seen on the show, there's already been a little bit of dedicated consoles that will play Pong-ish games. This one, though, has some chips that you can switch out to play other games, so it's not necessarily a dedicated console. We've seen mostly video games up to this point in the arcades and on the Magnavox Odyssey. This is the newest thing. I mean, we play a lot of arcade at this point, since the beginning of time. Besides the dedicated consoles, this one is really closely related to the Magnavox Odyssey, the one we saw from 1972. But a little bit different than that. It's not just discrete logic. Inside, they have some integrated circuits that allow this game to be a little bit fancier than the Magnavox Odyssey. The controller is attached to the console, you can see in the bottom left, and it has two knobs or paddles to allow you to move your paddle on the screen in different directions. Yeah, because majority of these games are going to be paddle style. Now remember, the Magnavox Odyssey was essentially just two lights, so this one is just one notch above, just a step above the Magnavox Odyssey. The sound from this console comes from the console itself, rather than the television, or the sound we've seen in other like arcade cabinets, very similar to a console we're going to see later called the RCA Studio 2. The console turns itself on automatically when you put in one of those chips. And I say chips because it's not necessarily a cartridge or a true cassette, because this is just like the Magnavox Odyssey. It's going to be released as the very first console that we've seen by Interton. After this console, there's the Interton Video 2400, then the 2501, then the 2800, then the 3000, and then the one that we first saw in Germany on Chronologically Gaming, the Interton VC 4000, the video computer. That one is much more complicated, and it's not a dedicated console. So on the box art for this console, 10 games are shown. 10 video games are on the box itself, but only 5 game cartridges were found. The video footage that we're seeing on the left was by Konsolenpunk, which I'm going to include the link down below. He speaks in English with a German accent on his channel about this console and all the games, so in much more detail. So check out that channel if you want to get more information on a really obscure console. So this is the first video game we're going to check out. It's cassette number 1, called Sparring. Let's see what it's all about. Here is the artwork we have for Sparring, at least the box itself. This is our 124th video game, released at some time in July 1975, the 29th video game that we've seen on home consoles. And bear in mind, the only other home consoles we've seen so far have been on the Magnavox Odyssey. The arcade right now has 95 video games that we've seen up to this point. And now this is home console territory. The very first video game we've ever seen by Interton. And I'm going to show you the circuits inside. It's using logic gates, like discrete logic. We break these down as DTL or TTL video games, but this one has a few integrated circuits involved as well. And here's when you open it up, it has the manual and the cassette, which is pretty much like this very similar chip that you would plugged into the Magnavox Odyssey. And there's the example of the screenshot. There's not really too much to explain here. Sparring is just a simple Pong variant. It's a single-player only game. You bounce the ball against a solid wall on the right side of the screen, and your aim is to keep returning it without letting it go out of bounds on the left side. There's no on-screen scoring. That means this game is a step down from Pong. It's not even two-player. This one is the 74th video game we've seen. That's a ball and paddle video game, and the 7th that we've seen so far on home consoles. It's the 68th Pong variant and the 7th Pong variant we've seen on home consoles. Since it's single player only, I don't know how much fun you could have just playing by yourself, but you do bounce back and forth, but you have to keep score, writing it down on a piece of paper, I guess. It's controlled with paddles, the 83rd video game we've seen controlled with paddles, the 29th that you could play with paddles on home consoles, and we're not able to play this one. So we have to give this one a no rating. It is another DTL, TTL video game with no microprocessor. The 29th that we've seen so far on home consoles. And this video game and this console originated from Germany. The second time we've seen any video game that originated from Germany after the arcade game Telekick. So the gameplay footage you see on the left, I want to thank Konsolenpunk again for posting this online, and check out his videos. But that's not all this console has. Our next video game is Badminton. Yes, can you believe they're using another sport we haven't seen yet? Let's check out Badminton on the Interton Video 2000. This one is, I have very little artwork for it. Our 125th video game released sometime in the summer of 1975 and the 30th video game on all home consoles. It's the second game by Interton. Badminton is essentially another Pong game, believe it or not, for two players. Players bounce the ball using their paddles, and your aim is to keep returning it without letting go or out of bounds. There is no score. It is very similar to the Magnavox Odyssey games when we played tennis or we played soccer. You know, the lights bouncing back and forth, but there's no score. It's all in your mind. I do have it inside of the cartridge or cassette with an example of the screenshot. And the gameplay footage over on the left is by Chronologically. The 75th video game that we've seen, that's a ball and paddle video game, and the 8th on home consoles, the 69th Pong variant, and the 8th we've seen on home consoles. This is the very first badminton game, but I'm only saying that because they're marketing it as badminton, but it's just Pong. It's the 84th video game we've seen that's controlled with paddles, and the 30th that we've seen for home consoles. It's the 30th game on home consoles that is not, we're not able to play. It has no internal logic, no microprocessor. It has some internal logic, but just not enough for us to actually play unless we have a simulator. We do have the gameplay footage you can see on the left. It's just Pong. So another no rating for another video game on a very obscure console. The next one is cassette number 3. This is Attacke. Attacke. It's Attacke. Here's the artwork for Attacke. The third game we've seen on the Interton Video 2000, released at some time in the summer 1975. This is our 126th video game and the 31st on home consoles. The third game by Interton that we've seen up to this point. Attacke is a simple game for two players. In fact, I'll show the gameplay footage over on the left side. This one is both players have to be playing at the same time. You're both going to be controlling a dot on the screen. You got a large dot and a small dot. The big one is supposed to be trying to catch the smaller dot. There's no on-screen scoring, but you do hear a little beep from the console itself when the chaser catches the chased person. This is basically a tag and chase video game. The fourth time we've seen a video game that's this simple. It's going to get more complicated later when we see games like Pac-Man, but that feels so far in the future right now. The other games we've seen that are using this style of gameplay would be Gotcha that we saw in the arcade, Perceps on the Magnavox Odyssey, and really this is Cat and Mouse. This is the same game on the Magnavox Odyssey because Cat and Mouse was two light beams that are playing tag and chase, but the Magnavox Odyssey had that overlay. This one's even more simpler than that. So if I was going to rate this, I would rate this lower, but I mean, at this point, these games are all so new that it's like pulling hairs. You have to have another person to play with you. It's the 85th video game that's controlled with paddles, the 31st on home consoles, and I don't really have any other artwork besides the screenshot. Yeah, that's it. Very, very rare system. I'm going to have to give this one another no rating since we can't play it ourselves. If we get our hands on these games where we can emulate them ourselves, then we rate them compared to all the other games you could play right now in 1975. But the video footage on the left is again by Chronologically. Thank you so much. After that, our next video game is also on the Interton Video 2000. This is Tennis, and I bet you can guess what tennis is. This is released at some time in the summer of 1975, our 127th video game and the 32nd on home consoles. This one's the fourth game that Interton has done and the fourth game on this home console. The box for it is very, very simple. Even though the box for the console had more games, only 5 were released. This is the 4th. There's the innards of the chip that you're going to put into your Interton Video 2000 with an example of the screenshot. Tennis is the simple Pong variant for two players. The players bounce the ball using their paddles, and the aim is to keep returning it without letting go out of bounds. There's no on-screen scrolling, just like the other games we've seen on this console. The game is similar to Badminton. The only thing that's different about this compared to Badminton is it's got a line in the middle of it, and it does have some bidirectional movement. You can move a little bit more, and the paddles are spaced farther apart, but essentially it's the same game as Badminton. This is the 76th ball and paddle style video game that we've seen, and the 9th on home consoles. It's the 14th video game that's tennis, but you could say Pong is tennis. We say tennis if they've advertised it as tennis, because obviously it's just Pong. It's all Pong right now. The 70th game that's copied Pong up to this point, and the 9th we've seen on home consoles. You have to have 2 people to play. You don't get to play by yourself. It is the 86th video game controlled with paddles and the 32nd on home consoles. This video game is another one. We can't play ourselves. We got to give it a no rating. But look at the gameplay footage on the left by Chronologically. of what tennis looks like if you were to play on the Interton Video 2000. And finally, the last video game, found, known, who knows, but on the Interton Video 2000, this is Super Tennis. Super Tennis essentially is very similar and the same video game we've seen before. I mean, we might as well call this a dedicated console. It's so close, right? This is our 128th video game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming, the 33rd that we've seen on home consoles. This one's the 5th video game by Interton we've seen up to this point, and what I have here for artwork is just, again, the inside of the cartridge and just a few images with an example of the screenshot. Take a look at the gameplay footage on the left side by Console and Punk. This game is another Pong variant. You have to have 2 people to play. It's the last one that has been found, or the cassette number 5 for the Interton Video 2000. It plays identical to tennis. Everything is the same, but it has on-screen scrolling because there's a second chip that they put inside the cartridge, or cartridge is being a little loose. Super Tennis game has the first point marker on a video game console that they're using as squares. So every video game we've seen on a home console up to this point, the Magnavox Odyssey, had you writing down things on paper. The scoring or any additional like cards, they had physical cards. This is the very first console video game that has scoring. Those little blips you see at the top left is the score. It's keeping track of a score for a home console video game. That's what makes Super Tennis special. This is the 77th ball and paddle video game we've seen so far, and the 10th on home consoles. It's the 15th tennis video game we've seen in all video gamedom, the 71st Pong variant, and the 10th Pong game we've seen on home consoles. This one is the 87th video game controlled with paddles so far, and the 33rd on home consoles. Paddle control is how people control video games in 1975. This one is another one we can't rate ourselves, so I have to give it a no rating. I don't know what I would rate it if I could play this because we've seen so much Pong. There is so much Pong that I didn't even realize there is this much until I started doing this backlog and making sure no video game is left behind. I might call it average, but I mean, how about you? Would you say this was average? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, so after Super Tennis, that marks the end of the Interton Video 2000. We sign off as the second home console that we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. Let's leave this and see what our next video game release is. Our next video game takes us back to the arcades. Ah, feels so much better. Can you smell that? The smells of 1975 arcade. This is Goal 4, released at some time in July 1975. Let's check it out, starting with the advertisement flyer. Goal 4. Hey, I know this artwork. It's Atari. They're back again. This is our 129th video game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming and the 96th in the arcade so far. The 19th video game we've seen by Atari. And don't forget, they're still releasing a few games here and there under the moniker Key Games, but Atari has done it all. Pong, Space Race, Pong Doubles, Gotcha, Super Pong, Rebound, Quadra Pong, Grand Track 10, Touch Me, Grand Track 20, Ping Pong, Quack, World Cup Football, Pursuit, Indy 800, Highway, Crossfire, Anti-Aircraft, and now Goal 4. This one is, I would say, not as impressive as the other titles we've seen so far. The advertisement is done very well, but man, look at that guy's shirt. It is 1975. Get some drinks, cocktail cabinet. You flip over on the back and it explains a little bit of how the game works. It's essentially like a foosball or table soccer video game. You're going to control multiple paddles at the same time, move them around, and bounce the ball around. There's the example of the arcade cabinet. Not a good scan, but we're now getting in the range of video games that are just very hard to come by to get anything on them. There's the example of the arcade marquee for Goal 4. Not as amazingly impressive as you would have thought. But I do have some gameplay footage. So right here above my shoulder, this is Goal 4. The gameplay footage is coming from Fox Mulder 900 from a video short that I was able to find. It's really hard to find anything on some of these games. This is the second foosball game that we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. The gameplay depends on how many players there are. In a single-player game, the player tries to kick the ball into the goal, which moves back and forth. In multiplayer mode, each side has a goalie and 2 forwards. The forwards can move back and forth and kick the ball offensively offensively or defensively. And the goalie depends on the goal of the ball. If there are 4 players, each side has 1 player controlling the goalie and 1 player controlling the 2 forwards. So the more the merrier. Bring on more people. This is our 78th ball and paddle video game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming. And the second time we've seen a foosball video game. Pong, it's still obviously Pong. This is the 72nd clone or copy of Pong, and it allows 4 people to play. This is the 39th video game we've seen with a max number of 4 players. Indy 800 is the only video game we've seen that allows 8 people to play. It allows team play, which is the 29th time we've seen a video game that gives that gameplay mode. It is the 88th video game controlled with paddles, yes. And it is the 127th video game that is using DTL or TTL discrete logic, which means we can't play it. If you see the gameplay footage, you understand it's basically Pong, but you're having multiple paddles move at the same time. Not the first time we've seen that, but still slightly original. We're going to see all these gameplay variations whenever the Atari 2600 comes out, and what a magical day that will be. But it seems pretty far in the future right now in 1975. All right, so thanks so much for that gameplay footage. Goal 4 is another game we can't rate ourselves, so we have to give it a no rating. And then press forward to see the future of video games as we get better, stronger, and the technology improves. What's our next video game? We're still going to hang out in the arcades, and we're next going to play Challenge. Play Challenge? I don't know about that. We'll see what Challenge is all about. Here's the advertisement flyer for Challenge. Released at some time in August 1975, this is our 130th video game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming. The 97th that's been released in the arcades up to this point. This one's by Mirko Games, the second time we've seen this company after Champion Ping Pong. The advertisement flyer has much to be desired. I mean, the arcade cabinet looks kind of like a refrigerator or an ice machine. It's not really selling me on I'm going to be playing some games with it. Here's another advertisement flyer. There we go. Bring the drinks, cocktails out, have some fun. This was released also in France, Mirko Games GmbH. Released first in North America by Mirko Games. And then the other advertisement flyer has the all-wood cabinet. Man, those cabinets are fancy. Challenge, the tabletop video with the free game. And we'll get into that in a sec. So this one is the last advertisement flyer. The most successful tabletop video game in the market. Really? Right now? Can someone tell me if this actually holds up or backs up to it? Oh, we got another one. So this is the myriad of games that Mirko Games is bringing out right now. I mean, they have a game called Scramble. Did anyone hear of Scramble? We haven't seen that one yet. It's not the Scramble you're thinking when you think of video games, though. And they even have some mechanical games. This era of video games, 1975, has a mixture. We got some video games. We have some games that have video footage on them, and we have games that have mechanical parts that are mixed in. We have seen ping pong or pinball and video game mixed together a little bit, but there's so many other mechanical video games that are in the market right now. And there's the example of the screenshot for Challenge. This one I do have gameplay footage of too. Take a look at what Challenge is like. So this is coming from for amusement only EV, the Flipper und Arcade Museum Singelstadt, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing in my English accent. So Challenge is a Pong variant for 1, 2, or 4 players. Players bounce the ball across the screen with their paddles, trying to hit the opposing side to score a point. In the 1 and 2 player modes, players can win a free game because if you play 1 player, you're playing against a computer Pong. If you play 2 players, you're playing against computer players. That's double the AI, which is pretty cool. And if you do well enough, you can win another life to keep going, which is something I don't think we've seen before, but I haven't had a chance to play all these Pong games to know if this really is the first. So it might be, but it might not. This one's our 79th ball and paddle video game we've seen up to this point, and the 73rd variant or copy of Pong. It is 4 players, the 40th video game that has a maximum of 4 players. And it is allow competitive multiplayer play and cooperative multiplayer play. That one's still pretty rare to play cooperatively. Robot was another one we've seen. Knockout was another one. And Anti-Aircraft is one we just played. Balloon Gun was the light gun shooter game that you could play cooperatively as well. It's the 30th team game, which allows team multiplayer modes. and single player, which is kind of cool to play against a computer as well. The 89th video game we've seen that's controlled with paddles, and the 103rd video game released in North America, first at least. But you can see what the gameplay's like. It's just Pong. All you're doing is playing more Pong. But it looks pretty classy. It looks really nice. And this one was a video, it's, again, hard to find, but the quality of this cabinet after lasting so long since 1975 is really, really cool. All right, so there you go. That's Challenge. I got to give this one a no rating, though. We didn't get to play it ourselves. Maybe we'll find some more video games to play that we can rate here in 1975. Until then, we'll just keep showcasing them so no game is left behind. What's our next video game release? We're next staying on the arcades, going to play some Slam. I have never heard of this one. Let's check out Slam. Here's the advertisement flyer, and there's much to be desired with this one. Released at some time in August 1975, Slam is a Pong variant for 1, 2, or 4 players. Players bounce the ball around the screen using paddles. You have to score points hitting the opposing side. Paddles can move in all directions, and the faster they hit the ball is returned on the other side of the playing field, almost like you got to use English on the ball. In 1 and 2 player modes, the opposing team is controlled by AI. That's right, another artificially intelligence-controlled video game. This one is our 131st game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming, and the 98th game released in the arcades. It's the 3rd game by Mirko that we just saw, doing Champion Ping Pong and Challenge. So this one is the 80th ball and paddle video game we've seen up to this point, and the 74th copy of Pong. 74 games that are really similar or close to Pong. It is the four-player maximum gameplay modes for this, and it has also team play modes. This is the 41st game we've seen that's 4-player able to play, and it has the AI controlled game like Robot and Knockout and Balloon Gun, or not Balloon Gun, but playing against a computer control like Challenge. It has a team mode. It's the 31st video game with team modes, and the 90th video game controlled with paddles. This one is the 104th video game released first in North America. And here you can see the other game, Scramble, which we haven't seen yet. Maybe Scramble's lost, or maybe we'll see it later. But there's Slam, drop back and lob the ball, making it feel like you're playing a sports game yet again. And that's all I have for artwork and no video footage of Slam itself. It's using discrete logic and no microprocessor, so we got to give this one another no rating, as we see every single video game in all video gamedom. What's our next game? Oh, here we go. Something a little more special. This is Speed Race DX, released at sometime in August 1975. Let's check it out. The advertisement flyer is one we've kind of seen before, but this one's the one released in Europe because it's really hard to find information on Speed Race DX. If you look at the top of the arcade marquee here, it says Deluxe in very, very tiny letters. This is the 132nd video game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming, and the 99th game released in the arcade. This is by Taito, the 11th time we've seen this company, and Tomohiro Nishikado strikes again after doing Elapong, Astro Race, Davis Cup, Pro Hockey, Soccer, Basketball, TV Basketball, Attacke UFO, and Speed Race, the first one. So the other artwork I have is the example of the arcade cabinet, again calling it Speed Race Deluxe, all written out. It was called Speed Race DX first in Japan, and that's where this first release would have been. But that's all I have for artwork. I do have some video footage, though. Here is Speed Race. There we go. Here is Speed Race DX in action. This is from RetroG, or Jigo, a Japanese YouTube channel that I'll include links down below. Speed Race DX is the updated version of Speed Race, the one we've already seen. The race plays mostly identical. This game plays mostly identical to the first one, with the player racing in a top-down view and scrolling, gaining points for overtaking other cars. This cabinet's slightly bigger than the first Speed Race, and there's 2 new features that have been added to the game, with a gear shift lever, and there's an in-game timer. This game is hot seat multiplayer only. You take turns with a friend, and you notice there's only one wheel that you're driving. It's the 9th video game that's a racing or driving video game, and it's the 4th video game that's not a top-down, all-on-one-screen arcade racing game, like Speedway or Highway or Street Burners that we just saw. This is the 4th video game in all of video gamedom that has 2D scrolling. There's only been 4 video games. It's the 7th video game that's controlled with a steering wheel and pedals, like a racing game. It's also the 5th video game that is turned on its side and it's in portrait mode. There's only 5 video games that we've seen so far where the screen's turned vertical. This is the 36th video game that is overlay assisted. Notice that there's a green hue to the game. This game's all in black and white. They have a green screen or a green overlay giving us that green look. It's only the 9th video game that has an overlay that we've seen in the arcades up to this point. It's also the 9th or the 8th video game that it's an automobile that you're controlling. There's only 8 video games where there's an automobile. Just imagine that. And it is the 17th video game released first in Japan. Here in the summer of 1975, Japan has 17 video games that originated there. Incredible. Well, we couldn't play it ourselves. Thanks so much for the video game footage. Check out the links down below if you want some more info. Of all the video games we could see or play, we still can't rate this one because it has no microprocessor inside. We're waiting for that day. The first video game with a microprocessor. It should come soon. All right, so after Speed Race DX, what's our next game? Almost the same kind of game. This is Wheels 2, released in the arcade at some time in August 1975. This is the last video game of the summer of 1975. And it's also known as Speed Race Twin in Japan. So this is the 133rd game we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. This is the 100th video game released in the arcades. Go arcades, go. And you know that the video game world and the industry started here in the arcades, and to know that we've played and seen 100 video games already in the arcades, and it's 1975, we have a long way to go. This one is the 12th video game by Taito and Tomohiro Nishikado, doing lots of games like Attacke UFO, basketball, TV basketball, soccer, Elapong, Astro Race, Davis Cup, lots of things like that. Speed Race Twin and Wheels 2 have an interesting story. From the dates and release dates that I've seen, Wheels 2 was released first here in the summer of 1975. In Japan, Speed Race Twin was released in 1976. It's because Wheels was the Midway conversion of Speed Race that was done first in Japan. I'm guessing that Midway ended up making this cabinet or developing or setting up this cabinet to work with 2 people, or it was already started on in Japan and Midway started to release it first, the Wheels 2 version, before they got the release in Japan. And this is just speculation based on what I've seen with the release dates. This is 1975. You really can't pin the release dates down, but I'm sure there's a story behind this video game. So here's the advertisement flyer for Wheels 2. This is 2-player racing, the 2-player version of Wheels. It's designed by Tomohiro Nishikado. The gameplay involves the player using the attached steering wheel, maneuvering the car alongside a fast vertically scrolling road. The objective is to score points by driving past other cars without colliding with them, and the more points awarded for the driver that can pass the most cars or drive the fastest. Now, you're all on one screen, which is kind of interesting because even though you're racing and driving, it's all occurring on the same road. You're sharing the same road. There's no split screen or anything like that. It's multiplayer competitive, but you can still play by yourself. It has a single-player mode. Very similar to another video game we've seen called Street Burners, a racing game top-down that's scrolling that allows you to play with 2 people at the same time. This is the 10th racing or driving video game that we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming, and the 5th video game that's not a single-screen top-down racing game. This is like Speedway or Highway or Street Burners or the one we just saw, Speed Race Deluxe. It's the 5th video game with scrolling. There is no other video game that scrolls other than the 5 games we've seen so far. It has a steering wheel and it has pedals, the 8th video game that's controlled that way, and it's the 6th video game with a portrait or a portrait or vertical mode. They turned the monitor vertical so you can play this game. So it's the 9th video game that's controlled with an automobile too. Wheels 2, or you can do the low profile Wheels. And I think they had both different cabinets. They've been mixing up different style of cabinets. But this game, since it's 2 people playing at the same time, there's no sit-down cabinet. Highway by Atari is still the very first video game that allows you to sit down and pretend like you're in a car. I mean, look at those chairs. It looks like bar stools. Oh, man. So there's the example of the arcade cabinet for Wheels 2, the 2 controlled wheels. At this point, there's only one other game doing this, and that's Street Burners, that allows 2 people to race with steering wheels at the same time. And here's what it looks like on the back of the Japanese advertising flyer. And I wanted to show you, this is the European one. They're breaking down the game and showing you how to play. 1 and 2 people can play. When one car crashes into the guard rail or an object car, it's reset to the start position. But the other player can keep going to pass more and more cars. There's also oil slicks, and they're keeping track of the score very similar to Speed Race. So it's just a slightly updated version of Speed Race, which just allows 2 people to play. Another video game that I can't find footage for, and it's also another one that doesn't have a microprocessor inside. So we got to give this one a no rating. We can't rate the video game, but now we have seen every video game up to the summer of 1975. This was the last one. Let's see what happens after the summer of 1975. But now it's time to put all the video game questing on pause. Thanks so much for everyone checking out the backlog videos as we try to make sure no game is left behind. What's really exciting is, starting from 1971 up until now, we still have not seen a video game that has that classic arcade gameplay loop. Every video game we've seen so far is based on like a sports game. You get to a certain amount of points and then the game is over. There is no high score, there is no score attack, none of that. That doesn't exist yet. What's going to be the very first video game that allows us to keep going for a higher and higher score? So next time on the Chronologically Gaming backlog, horror games, a very special Western themed game from Japan, and more arcade games we missed from Atari, Sega, and Taito. That's it for today, and like I always say, sprechen Sie Videospiel? Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the channel and joining me on my quest to play every single video game in order of release. We'll be streaming live every weekday at 9 p.m. Central, so join us and let us know if we missed any games along the way. This video would not be possible without Launchbox, RetroArch, and MAME. Tell all your friends there's some crazy guy named Chronologically Gaming trying to play every single video game. We have links down below that'll send you to places like our Discord and Patreon, and one that says all the video games we've ever played. If you go there, it's a list of everything, and you can click right to the game you want to see. Chronologically Gaming is the name to look for. We are perpetually retro, and we will catch you next time.